this coaching program. So in the last session, we started with a set of questions, about 75 questions, if I remember well. They were different from, actually, we focus a lot on stakeholders, team, and also on Agile. And I told you guys that questions from these actually topics, they account for about like 60%, maybe like average 60% of the questions in the PMP exam. So actually, if you master really well, how to deal with your project stakeholders, how to engage them, how to, understand their needs, how to know how to resolve conflicts with them, how to understand the gap between what they have expected versus what we have delivered. If you know how to keep them engaged in your project, get their support, if you know when to escalate to the stakeholders, the sponsor, etc. Also, if you know how to deal with the change control board, etc., etc. So really, that can help you score like on a lot of questions related to stakeholders. Then with the team, now if you know how to lead the team, how to serve the team, how to empower the team, how to help the team get or like understand their roles, responsibilities, what's expected of them, and work on developing the team members, supporting their growth, providing training, support, coaching. Also, if you know how to apply the proper communications with the team, again also with the stakeholders, resolve the conflicts with the team, again with the stakeholders, and also if you really were able to understand the different techniques which we have shared in our training, how to work with virtual teams or like remote team members, how to use low tech, high touch tools to be able to coordinate among the team members who could be dispersed across different countries or continents, how to support the team in understanding the stakeholders requirements, so they can really develop what is expected of them, how to really conduct lessons learned with the team members, how to understand the root cause of an issue, how to properly practice their roles in the project, whether in an agile project, in a waterfall project, or in any other types of projects. Also, how to coordinate, or help the team coordinate, with the stakeholders, with the product owner in an agile project, etc., etc. So really mastering all these points really can help you, score on most of the questions related to the team in the PMP exam. Then about agile, like agile really, is an important part in the PMP exam, like the transition to agile, favoring the transition to agile, understanding the company's culture, be ready for any setbacks, be able to break the project requirements into manageable increments, work on incremental delivery, understand the difference between iterative, incremental, full agile. Also be able to facilitate the different meetings in the agile or in the adaptive project management. What happens in the planning meeting, in the daily meeting, in the review meeting, the retrospective meeting, how to handle stakeholders in an agile project, how to make sure the product owner, they really play a critical, or they play properly their role, how to really perform very well as a servant leader or as a facilitating project manager, the self-organizing, managing team, how can they really focus on focus on their sprint backlog, have, let's say, sort of like a constant velocity, make sure that they achieve their sprint objectives, deliver what's expected of them, etc., etc. So really, I mean, these points here are quite important. However, even in agile, like delivering business value or the expected value, being compliant to the regulations, dealing with the risks, also these are also part of agile. I want to emphasize here that, on the quality, the procurement, the other topics such as quality, procurement, risks, etc. Actually, a lot of those questions can be generic, like, just general practice, not related to any type of project management, or they can, maybe, or sometimes the question, it can guide you, or can indicate what type of project management is being applied to that question, and then, how would you deal with these topics. However, the process of, or actually dealing with risks or with procurements, with contracts, with vendors, actually it's kind of more of a generic, it can, because, it can have these issues, these situations in any types of project management. So if you remember really well from our training, we made sure in our training that you guys understand what's the procurement process, what's the risk process, what's the change process for Waterfall. Okay. Etc., etc. So that's why in the training I always said that if you really master chapter 2, 3, 4, understand them really well, you can really, like, guarantee that you'll do fine on 60% of the exam, more or less. Again, and for the rest of the chapters, I always say that almost like they're like, you might have like generic questions, but even if it puts you in the exam in a specific type of project management, still understanding the procurement process or the risk process or whatever other process, you can still like really apply it in Agile or in Waterfall. Of course, just pay attention to any specifics. Okay, like related specifics related to Agile or related to hybrid or Waterfall. So that's why we emphasized in the last session with those questions on these topics. Okay. Now in today's session, actually, I picked around 60 questions from exam 20. Now let me remind you that really these questions are very similar to the ones you might get on your real PMP exam. So we will go through these questions, and after we finish them, then, I will give you, like, how to do the last touches before, taking your PMP exam. Last things to think of. What I will do also, in this last week of November, is, I'm going to, make an update to the tips and tricks version 2. Again, another update to the tips and tricks version 2. Actually, I'm going to include something really important, really useful, that I think everybody, will benefit from it, and I will be releasing that before the end of November. Yeah, it's going to be something that will really help you, really help you with understanding all of the exam questions. Now, let me remind you of one important thing, which is the exam, which is, divided into three parts. Each part contains 60 questions. Now, not all of the questions are always long, not all of the questions are always short, even though this period, like this November, like really 95% of the people, more than 95%, to be honest, passed their exam, like our students, I'm talking about our students, and most of them said that the exam was pretty easy. And even if there were a couple of guys who thought the exam was kind of tough, kind of long, they still managed to pass, and they said that really understanding the mindset helped them a lot. Okay. So actually, I recommend that you guys wait until the end of November. I will be releasing an update on LinkedIn, on YouTube. uh, so this update document will really contain some more points in the tips and tricks and the PMI's mindset, that will really, guys, I think will really help you now, pass the exam in December and celebrate before the year end. So hopefully this really is something you will benefit from, and you can share also with your colleagues. All right, so now let's start with these with this set of questions in here. Again, I've selected 60 questions from exam 20. And please, if any one of you guys are going to take the exam soon, let me know. Drop me a note on WhatsApp or on LinkedIn or on, in a comment on YouTube. And definitely, I will be sharing with you some useful resources and exams to help you in your preparation journey. Okay. All right. So let's start. Actually, so we can start with this set of questions. All right. Now, let's have question one. Okay. So, a project is experiencing delays due to identified risks. What should the project manager do to manage the project schedule? Revise the project schedule and inform the stakeholders regarding any delays. Revise the project estimates and meet with the project team to discuss delays. Review the management reserve to identify any costs associated with the delays. Review the contingency reserve to identify any delays to the project. Now, let me give you a hint, not about this question, but actually about all the questions. Now, once you read the question, you really need to make sure that you understand the question from the first time you read it. Because reading this question, for example, this is considered like not really short question, kind of short, like the at the bottom of the medium size questions, like right at the bottom, like between the bottom of the medium size questions and the top of the short questions. Actually, I would consider it as a short question because the text actually is not long. Okay. Now I recommend that you guys, when you read the question, you try to understand it from the first shot, so you don't have to read it again. Okay, that's one thing to tell you. And the second thing, which is quite important, is apply the elimination techniques. When you read the answers, try to figure out, if any of the answers contains any of those elimination techniques which we talked about in the first two sessions of this coaching program, and apply those elimination techniques. Now, for example, now the project here is experiencing delays to the identified risks. Now, what should you do to manage the project schedule? Now, let's look at the answer now. The answer says we need to revise the schedule and inform the stakeholders regarding any delays. Now, let's check the answers B, C, and D. Are there any elimination techniques in here that are like straightforward elimination techniques, or actually we picked answer A based, on the meaning and the context of each answer? Now, answer B says revise the project estimates and meet with the project team to discuss delays. Okay. Answer C says review the management reserve to identify any costs associated with the delays. Answer D says review the contingency reserve to identify any delays to the project. Now, reviewing the contingency reserve does not help us identify any delays, to be honest. Okay. And the management reserve, we don't mention it, we don't touch it if we have already identified delay risks. So management reserve for the is for the unidentified risks. Okay. Now here actually, since we have identified risks, what should we do, about the project schedule? Now, revise the schedule and inform the stakeholders, or revise the estimates and meet with the team to discuss delays. Now, definitely the best course of action is revise the schedule, okay, and then touch base with the stakeholders, let them know, and if we need to raise any change request, then we do that and we raise the change request. Okay, so that's actually the best course of action. Now, the people who might have chosen answer B, to revise the estimates and meet with the project team, actually we don't need to revise the estimates. We have identified risks, okay, which are somehow are might cause delays, or actually are causing delays. All right. So here, actually, we have already known the delays and it's due to the risks. So it's not a problem with the estimates. So that's why we need to revise the schedule, update it to reflect on these identified risks. And then we need to inform the stakeholders and, if necessary, raise a change request. Okay. All right. Okay, these questions are not in order. So actually, I've picked just 60 questions from the presentation of exam 20. Actually, exam 20, we've put it in the presentation. Exam 20 is, in the form which usually, used for taking the exams. We've put actually the questions of exam 20 in the presentation, and then I picked just some questions from the exam 20 to share with you in this session. All right. Okay, good. So a new project has been kicked off following a planning session. The project is under direct oversight of an executive in the organization. After a review meeting, the project manager overhears an executive request, uh, an executive requesting a dashboard from one of the team members to show the overall project status. What should the project manager do? Update the stakeholder engagement assessment metrics, update the communications management plan to include formal requests, ask the team member to develop the dashboard to fulfill the request, or tell the team member to route the request through the project manager. Now, here the executive in the organization, who is actually acting sort of maybe the sponsor because it says under the direct oversight of this executive, asked a team member, okay, to you know to create or develop a dashboard, okay, to show the overall project status. Now, let's see which answer. Let's check which answer is right. Now, updating the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. Actually, there is no problem of engagement here. The executive is pretty engaged, actually, so we don't need to pick answer A. Updating the communications management plan to include the formal request. This formal request, we don't put it in the communications management plan, okay? It's a formal request. It's not a communication request, okay? It's not a request, to update the type of communication or information or update a reporting. So actually, we don't put it in answer B, all right? Now, ask the team member to develop the dashboard to fulfill the request. Maybe that will happen, but actually, since the executive approached the team member, then definitely what we need to do is we need to tell the team member, usually, like we need to tell the team member that such requests should go through the project manager, because bypassing, please remember this, bypassing the project manager is not a good approach, okay? It's not the best action to do. Actually, for such a request, it has to go through the project manager, not just because of the change management purposes, okay, but because, of estimating how much this task, would require, of resources, time and effort, cost, etc. So the project manager needs to be involved, needs to be in the loop, okay, in the loop. So the team members should not actually, develop something without, the project manager being, in the picture, knowing about it, and then, taking the right decisions. Okay. All right. A hybrid project team is working on an upgraded version of software for their product owner. The team is also responsible for supporting the existing product and customers. For the last 3 sprints, the team had to stop their project work and focus on major support items for the product owner. The testers are struggling to cope with the constant changes to the plan, which has resulted in a number of emotional outbursts. How should the project manager proceed? Request a replacement for those team members who are unhappy with this way of working. Schedule a session with the product owner to explain that no support items can be taken into the sprints going forward. Ask human resources to send the team members to a change management workshop, or schedule a session with the team to discuss the issues and work with them to define a plan to manage the sprints going forward. Now, somehow there are two answers in here in this question that are kind of to be eliminated, okay? Which is requesting a replacement. We said that we usually, really, in PMI's mindset, we don't replace team members, okay? So definitely answer A is to be excluded. And then asking HR to send the team to a change management workshop. Actually, this does not seem like a good answer. All right. Now, which one is the best to pick between B and D? Now, the right answer is definitely D. Now, schedule a session with the team to discuss the issues and work with them to define a plan to manage the sprints going forward is a better answer than to schedule a session with the product owner to explain that no support items can be taken to the sprints going forward. Actually, no. Maybe the support items can be included within the sprint, but here we need to discuss the issues with the team and prepare a plan on how to move forward. Okay. Because the issue here is they had to stop their works. They should not stop their work. Okay. In order to avoid having such a repeating situation with the testers, and this is what we need to do, all right? Because telling the product owner, like, no support items can be taken to the sprints going forward, even if some people will think actually, uh, support items are uh, outside of the project, but actually they're not, since the product owner had brought them into the scope of the project, and they are major support items. So actually, we cannot exclude them, since the product owner is part of the project team. That's why we need to discuss with the team how we can go forward with this, and then because the team, they need to manage their work within the sprint. Okay. All right. Let's have another question. A financial company is developing a new application for mobile banking using a hybrid approach. The project is delayed as the product concept has not yet been developed to the key stakeholder satisfaction despite multiple design iterations. The key stakeholder has now started participating in all daily stand-ups. The project manager has observed that the key stakeholders' presence has had a negative impact on the team's morale while also impacting productivity, which is quite understandable because actually, the daily stand up is for the team with their facilitator. Even we said it in the training that the presence of the product owner is kind of optional, not mandatory. Okay. So imagine, having a key stakeholder present in a daily stand up. How would that impact the team? Definitely, it will have an impact. Okay. How should the project manager ensure that the stakeholders' issues are addressed effectively without impacting the team? Set up a meeting with the stakeholder to address their concerns directly, move to a predictive design and requirements gathering approach, talk to the team separately to address the stakeholders' concerns, schedule a team retrospective, and invite the stakeholder. Okay? Now, answer B is definitely to be eliminated. Now, since we're working in a hybrid, we don't go back to predictive, okay? Plus, I think it's like, predictive design and requirements gathering approach is not actually recommended. Talk to the team separately to add. Once we removed answer B, okay, then among the answers A, C, and D, we will go with the answer A because, as we have mentioned before several times, um, in case there is a conflict now, and here we have a conflict, okay, we have a conflicting situation, then we definitely encourage direct communication. Okay. So talking to the stakeholder directly will help addressing their concerns. Okay. Because this stakeholder does not have to join the daily stand-ups. If, for example, they need to understand more from the team where, what they have achieved so far, or if they have got any points to discuss with the team, because that had put the team, in a very uncomfortable position. So the project manager should talk to the stakeholder directly. Scheduling a team retrospective and invite the stakeholder. Actually, the retrospective's purpose is to discuss improvements for the team, and then talking to the team separately to address the stakeholders' concerns. Is the other way around, actually, is the team that is uncomfortable with the stakeholders' presence. So we need to talk to the stakeholder to address this concern with them. Okay. And also to understand their concerns. The stakeholder, we need to understand from them why are they actually attending this daily meeting. What are their concerns? So then we can understand it better and address it in a different way. Okay, guys. Now in the exam, if you have long questions and the answers, and some of the answers are very very similar. Okay, don't stress yourself. Break it down. Start with eliminating the answers which don't fit, and from the remaining answers, pick the one as usual. Either is the most complete, either is the one that comes first in time, either is the one that responds directly to the point. Okay, straight to the point. Now, this is kind of long somehow. This is kind of long question with a long text. Okay, so you really need to understand what's the issue, what's the point in the text. Okay, because it can happen that in many questions in the exam, you will have a text that distracts you, and actually the question is going to be about probably just about one part in that text, like the last part, or just maybe you can find it in the question itself, etc. So please try to apply this technique. Always eliminate answers, one or two answers that are to be eliminated because they're out of the topic, or because they contain elimination techniques, as we saw in the first session, okay, or the second session maybe, and then pick the answer that really answers straight, like answers the question directly, or answers the situation directly. All right, or maybe the answer that contains the most complete, well, that is the most complete, or that comes the first in the process, or the first in the logical steps of the action, such as, for example, reviewing situation with the team, analyzing the situation, the root cause, defining, etc. Okay, we will see some of these questions. In a highly politicized organizational environment, the stakeholders are driven by their own operational or business goals, which results in conflicting interests regarding the project. What should the project manager do to steer the stakeholders toward the collective project goal? Anticipate, alert, and follow the risk management process, detect, track, and follow the issue management process, promote, inspire, and follow the stakeholder engagement process, discuss, educate, and follow the communications management process. Now, we can see from this question that actually is giving us totally four different processes. Okay, risk management, issue management, stakeholder engagement, and communications management. Now, if you find yourself in such type of questions, now what you need to do is you need to understand what's the process in question here. And for this type of questions, really, you will have around five, maybe up to 10. I would definitely, I'm certain about five questions, which really give you four answers from four different processes. And to pick the right answer, you need to understand what's the process in here? What are we talking about here? Now, we're talking about a highly politicized environment. Stakeholders. Now here we start with the stakeholders. So when we say stakeholders, actually it can be any process, but maybe we might think of stakeholder engagement, maybe communication. Let's check what's the problem. Okay, are driven by their own goals, and this results in conflicting interests regarding the project. Okay, now so far it's still about stakeholders, conflicts between stakeholders, conflicts in interests. Okay, now I'm kind of heading towards engagement process, kind of heading towards that. What should the project manager do to steer the stakeholders toward the collective project goal? All right, now the question here helped me really and directed me towards the answer, which is answer C, promoting, inspiring, and following the stakeholder engagement process. Because from the question, I could figure out, actually it directed me, it gave me a hint, and I knew that it's about stakeholder engagement. There is no indication that it's a communication issue. Here it's not a situation from which we can figure out that there is a risk issue or an issue, or actually it's about managing issues. Now, since it's about stakeholders, it's about goals, conflicting interests, then we need to engage them, work with them on agreeing on common goals and move forward with the project. Okay, so the answer is C in this example, all right? Okay. A company is starting a critical project with a strict deadline. During the first planning meeting, the team realizes that the list of requirements has too many items to follow on time delivery. What should the project manager do first? Increase the capacity of the team to finish the project on time, update the risk register and present a contingency plan to meet the deadline, ask the team to propose a minimum viable product MVP to meet the date, or suggest to the customer to reduce the backlog to meet the date. Okay, now critical project, strict deadline, first planning meeting. We have a lot of requirements, too many items that are part of the on-time delivery. What we need to do first? Now the question is asking you first. Now I suggest to eliminate answer D. Okay, because suggesting to the customer to reduce the backlog to date, that actually, it's not part of our mindset or the way how we work. Okay, and then increasing the team capacity, whether asking them to work overtime or adding resources, both are not acceptable. Okay, now too many items, we're really tied to the deadline. So what we need to do is definitely define a minimum version, or a version that contains the minimum features, the most important features, let's say the most important, the highest value features, and meet the date. Okay, that's the right mindset. Okay, too many, if we have too many items and we have strict delivery date, then definitely we need to prioritize the items. And answer C is actually about prioritizing the items. Okay, answer B is about updating the risk register. Okay, presenting a contingency plan to meet the deadline. That's not an effective solution. Doing this, if you would do this as a project manager, that's as if you're really like trying to empty the sea with a sandbag, for example. We don't do that. So really, this answer B is definitely not effective, doesn't provide any value. So we have eliminated answers A and D due to the elimination techniques, and from B and C, obviously we go with C because it's about prioritizing the highest value items in order to deliver an initial version that contains the most vital and important features and meet the deadline, okay, or the delivery date. Okay, so I know that you might be saying that actually, analyzing the question in the way I just did is pretty easy now because we have time, we're not under the stress, we're not taking the real exam. Yes, I know, guys, I know that in the real exam, you will be under the stress. We'll have huge pressure because clock is ticking. 180 questions. You might lose concentration, etc. Now, this is actually why PMI had introduced those breaks, in order to help people, have a higher success rate. And I told you before, guys, in the time when I took the exam, it was 4 straight hours, 200 questions, no break. You cannot go to the bathroom. Even if somebody, if you have an illness and you need to go to the bathroom due to your illness, you could not do that. Really impossible. Now it's way easier now. Okay, the questions are much more like attractive, with a broader scope, and more techniques. Actually, you guys are really lucky. You're studying up to almost 300 techniques and processes, tools, templates, etc. In our times, actually, we had way less than that, but your exam is much more interesting. All of our questions before were just a question with 4 possible answers, or a question with 5 answers, and you'll pick multiple answers for the question. Now you have this hotspot, drag and drop, and plus now the questions are much more realistic, actually straight to the advancements we have in technology and in the ways how we manage projects. So I really love PMP in the new way, much more entertaining, let's call it, than in our times, like almost 15 years ago. Okay, but as I said, you really need when you answer the questions, you need to figure out actually what really works, what's the situation about, how to eliminate the answers. Okay, and even if you are under pressure, and I know that maybe understanding the question at home is different than taking the exam with the pressure. I said many times before, and I have even posted videos about this on YouTube. Work with your stress. Convince yourself. Try really to disconnect. Try to disconnect your mind from the exam's reality. I'm serious. I'm serious. Do it. Work without pressure. Answer the exam without pressure. You know what? Try to rehearse and practice on how you can forget about the importance of this exam, the importance of having this certification, and take the exam as if you're taking it from home. Because when you're taking any mock exams from home, you're disconnecting yourself from any pressure. Okay, you're disconnecting yourself from any stress because you know that you will not be judged, or you will not be you know having the final results for your examination. So you need to do that. Um, just one thing you should not forget about, which is time management. You definitely need to make sure that even at home, when you're answering mock exams, pay attention to the time, to the clock. So if you manage your stress, if you convince yourself that this is no different than any of those mock exams we took at home, we should answer it without any pressure. We should enjoy it. We should have fun. I should not now focus on the final result. I should not focus on the certification. I should focus actually on answering the questions in the right way and within the time reserved for the exam. If you manage to achieve that state of mind and consciousness, then you will definitely make it to the final results. Okay, so please remember this. Stress management is really important. Working with your mind, and preparing it to answer the exam without any pressure, it will help you a lot, because 90 more than 90% of the people who failed the exam, they had two major problems. They were ready. Actually, they were doing good during the training and the preparing with the mock exams. They had two major issues: managing the time and managing the stress. And I know a lot of people who really, because of the stress, due to the stress, they could not answer the questions anymore. They could not read properly the questions anymore. The question is pretty easy. Usually, I mean, they know the question, or they've seen a very similar question to it. It's not something new or something like they haven't seen before. The techniques, they know them, they master them, they can understand the mindset, but the stress block them. So please work on your mind, work with your stress, convince yourself that it's like if you're at home, really relax, just relax to the maximum, and tell yourself, I'm taking this exam, I'm going to enjoy it. If I passed, great, that's great. If not, I still have more chances. So once you convince yourself with this, then a lot of pressure and a lot of stress will be gone, and you will be able to, better answer those questions and be sure the result at the end will be pass. Okay? Let's go to the next question. A project is on its sixth iteration out of seven. Select the 2 points where the team is performing better than expected. Iteration one, two, three, four, five, six. Now, this is a burn down chart, which is used during the sprint, or let's say now during the project in this case, in order to follow with the team's performance. And we have said in our training that now the straight line always is the plan. That's the straight line, okay? Diagonal line, that's the plan. The other line, usually it's a straight, another straight line with a different color, or it's a dashed line, is the actual progress or the actual performance of the team. Okay. And we said that in the burn down chart, if the actual line or the line of the execution is below the line of the plan, that means the team is doing good, is actually delivering and completing work more than planned. But if it's above, then the team is behind. Okay. Now, iterations um, here, iterations one and two. Actually, the execution line above above the plan, so the team is behind. No, actually, those are iterations two and three, but iterations four and five, here we have the line below, actually, all right, which means the team had performed more than expected. And then iteration six, again, the line is above the plan line. So definitely the right answer is D and E, which are iterations four and five. Okay, so please remember this for the burn down chart. For the burn up chart is the other way around. For the burn up chart, actually, if the line of the actual execution or completion of the scope is above the plan, that means the team is progressing well. If it's below the plan, then the team is actually behind. A major issue about conflicting priorities has been highlighted by the project team with regard to a few stakeholder requirements. What should the project manager do? Prioritize other items for the team and deal with the conflicting requirements later. Allow the project team to decide what is the most appropriate requirement to follow. Escalate to the project management office and request a solution for the requirements, or negotiate a common agreement with the involved stakeholders regarding the requirements. All right. Now, I like these types of questions because they make you think, and you need to analyze each answer and figure out, is this answer wrong? Because actually, it should not be done that way, or if it contains an elimination technique, or if this answer good, because actually it can fit, okay, within the context. Now we have major issue that about, I mean, we have conflicting priorities about a few stakeholder requirements. Now, what should we do? Now, here the problem is with the stakeholder requirements. Now, prioritize other items for the team to deal with, for the team, and deal with the conflicting requirements later. Are we sure about this? Because actually, usually requirements from the stakeholders are kind of urgent. Okay, so we don't know. We cannot just postpone them. Allow the team to decide what is the most appropriate requirement to follow. Is this really should this really come from the team? Because we're talking about stakeholder requirements. Escalate to the PMO and request a solution. We don't escalate straight ahead. We escalate only if we have exhausted all of our means and we don't have any remaining solution, okay? Usually. So actually, the right answer for this question is, let's talk to the stakeholders. Let's negotiate a common agreement with them regarding the requirements so we can better, understand the priorities of these requirements, okay? And then we can resolve the issue with these conflicting requirements, okay? So that's the right course of action to be done, okay? Now, let me tell you something important that may have crossed your mind. You might be saying, um, in the last session, Ahmed, brought us questions mainly about stakeholders, team, agile. Why in this session we're not having questions about risks, procurements, quality? Actually, we will have, but let me tell you something really important. Even for questions about quality, about risks, about procurement, etc., you'll always have them in the context of, a conflict with a stakeholder, a team complaining about something, etc., etc. So actually, that's what PMI is doing. I told you, you can, because sometimes our students, when they leave from the exam, and I noticed this coming from too many students. They were saying, all of the exam was about stakeholders and team. And I tell myself, how is this possible? It cannot be all of the exam. It was not just one student. It was not 5 students. It was not 10 students. It was tens of students, tens of them, maybe hundreds of them. They were saying the same thing. So then I had, I went on reviewing the new types of questions that, you might have similar ones to them in the exam. And I figured that actually it's always about, dealing, with different situations in the exam. As we said, like it's always situational, but in these situations, you will always have a stakeholder in there. You will always have a regulatory body. You will always have a team member, and then that particular topic like procurement or risk, etc. Okay, and we will have several questions about these. So just keep this on mind. Okay. A project manager is assigned to a time-bound internal project on quality improvement. During project execution, the project manager observes that a specific team member is being isolated by other team members. Which 3 actions should the project manager take? Arrange and conduct team building sessions to improve team effectiveness. Allow team members to resolve personal issues without involving the project manager. Get feedback from other team members to understand what led to this situation. Identify the isolated team member as a risk and document the situation in the risk register. Obtain feedback from the isolated team member to understand the situation. Now, I think the situation, or actually the answers to this question, are quite obvious. Now, one team member is isolated, okay, and isolated by the other team members, okay. Now, what needs to be done? Let's look at answer B. Allowing the team members to resolve their issues on their own. We don't want that. We really don't want that. We prefer if the project manager is involved, because to avoid if things getting out of hand. Okay, and let's look at answer D. Answer D is quite negative. It's quite passive. Identify the isolated team member as a risk. Why identify them as a risk? Like, why not understand better, like what happened, what caused this situation, gather the team for a team building or for a meeting, etc. So actually, I don't like answer D at all. I would go with answers A, C, and E. Conducting a team building that can bring the team members closer. If there are any misunderstandings, they can be resolved during this team building, because the team building is about building relationships. Understanding from the other team members what has led to the situation. Okay, let's understand their point of view, and then also understand the point of view of the isolated team member. Why is he or she isolated? What happened? So actually, that's why we go with answers A, C, and E. And you can see that this question is pretty easy, actually. Okay, even though in this set of questions we'll have some difficult questions, but this question is pretty easy, to be honest, because even in a logical way, and not necessarily somebody studying PMP, they could actually answer this question. Okay. All right. Two teams are engaged on a global project which uses a follow the sun approach in order to speed up delivery. After the first release, many issues were identified on the product which could easily have been avoided with better communication. What should the project manager do? Improve the video conferencing system to provide better availability and quality in order to increase communication. Have team ambassadors from each location travel uh, to the others in order to facilitate communication and minimize issues. Facilitate a meeting with both teams so that they can agree on the issues and propose solutions that work for both teams. Move working windows so that team members can have increased overlap for the handover of status and issues to their counterparts. Okay. Now, these two teams on a global project, they, use the follow the sun approach. Follow the sun approach means not sleeping at all, 24 hour by 24 hour, availability, okay? In order to speed up delivery. After the first release, many issues were identified, and these could easily have been avoided with better communication. Now, what needs to be done? Improve the video conferencing system in order to provide better availability? I don't think so. Okay. Have the team ambassadors from each location travel to the other in order to facilitate communication? No. Not necessarily, because actually we have a global team. Okay, so yeah, face-to-face communication is good, but actually, when we're talking about remote team members, remember in PMI's mindset, when there is a remote team, we try to keep it remote. Not we don't want to exhaust the budget with traveling, etc. Now, either we facilitate a meeting between both teams so they can agree on the issues and propose solutions that work for both of them, or we can move the working windows, like change the working time so the team members can have increased overlap. Okay, actually, answer D is not really providing an effective solution, and facilitating a meeting with both teams is the best, because here we will involve both teams, directly talk about the issue, try to resolve it directly, and that resolution is coming from both teams, actually. Okay, so the answer is C for this question. All right. A project manager is leading a major water pipeline project and realizes midway into the project that the completion date is not achievable. Okay. Local farmers who rely on the water for irrigation may be affected due to the delay. The project manager is afraid of their displeasure and reaction, which will affect the project. How should the project manager plan the communication to the stakeholders? Now, let me remind you of something important. All of the questions in the exam are situational, and the kind of projects in which are the kind of projects used in the exam, they're really very various, variable. You can have projects from agriculture, from IT, from construction, from services, from marketing, from product development, from production, from NGO, non-governmental organizations, social projects, political projects, etc. Really a huge variety of types of projects, which is really nice to have, because you see, even in our training with tens and like with in our training, there are tens and tens of types of projects that come from all of those training participants, because we have people working in banking, insurance, textile, people working in telecommunications, people working in science, people working, as teachers, etc., etc. So, having this a huge variety of projects will help you, you know, find yourself in situations that are common to you, known to you, because you come from that background, and you will not have that feeling that actually you're taking an exam that is unrealistic or not related to your field of work. Okay, and this has helped people and encouraged them to actually, come forward, to the PMP certification, because actually some people thought, oh, the PMP is for people in IT only. That's not true. It's the same thought we had in the past, in the 10, 15, 20 years ago, when people thought that PMP is only for people in the construction field. No, it's not. It's like actually for everyone. Okay. So here, this major water pipeline project, and we have a major yeah, um, project completion date is not achievable, so the local farmers, they really depend on this, and the project manager doesn't want to dissatisfy them. So how should the project manager plan the communication to the stakeholders? Please remember something important. Now, you have always to pay attention to the question. Now, in the text describing the situation or the context or the project, now it's very important because most of the time you will find a keyword in here that will help you. But make sure you pay attention to the question. Why the question is very important? Because you need to understand what the question wants you to think about. Okay, what is the action that you need to take according to the question? So please pay attention to the question, really important. Okay, um, document and accept this risk. I don't think so. Like, usually if a situation, really from the situation we don't see like a, a clear risk, then usually the answer about documenting this as a risk is kind of passive, because PMI doesn't want you as a project manager just to update your risk register or update your issue log, but without taking effective solution. Because let's be honest, I'm a project manager. I've been practicing project management for almost 18 years. Okay. And I know that some project managers think that whenever there is an issue or a risk, just recording the issue in the issue log or the risk in the risk register can just mean they're good project managers. No. And they don't take actually effective action. No. I mean, definitely you need to record that as an issue or as a risk, but you need to take the effective action. And usually, if the question is not asking you about what to do first, because first is always about answering from the steps of the process. And we have discussed several processes in our training. If the question is not asking you about first, because when it tells you first, maybe the answer would be recording this in the risk register or recording this in the issue log, because that's the first step to do in the process. But if it's not asking you first, then you need to pick the most effective solution. Maybe some of the answers can be solutions, but we need to pick the most effective one. Now, documenting this as a risk, I don't think so. Collecting feedback from the farmers and keep the information within the project team. Why? Why to do it? How would that help? Not helpful, really. Deliver the information to the stakeholders with the project management office assistance. Why do we need the PMO's assistance in here? Why don't we just propose a solution to the stakeholders and communicate this to the local farmers? Why not this answer? Is actually the most effective one, because the question is asking you about how to plan the communication to the stakeholders. Okay, it's about communication to the stakeholders. Okay, so let's propose a solution to them and communicate it to the local farmers. That's the best course of action to take. Okay, guys, I need you to think logically, and I need you to understand the mindset of PMI. How does PMI want us to think as project managers or project management practitioners? Okay, so slowly with these practice questions, we can get there. All right. A company is transitioning from predictive to an agile approach, and that's very common in a lot of questions in the PMP exam. You can find this actually in many questions. During the last two sprint reviews, the product owner complained about the development team, indicating that the increments do not meet the acceptance criteria defined in the user stories. The development team complained about the product owner, who is defining sprint backlog items because the backlog items cannot be delivered during the 2 week sprints agreed to at the beginning of the project. Okay. How should the project manager resolve the situation in their new role as a servant leader? Review the organizational process assets (OPAs) to find similar situations and review the resolution actions taken. Request that the team use the next sprint to complete all technical debt remaining from the previous sprints. Extend the sprints to 3 weeks to allow the work requested by the PO to be completed. Encourage the whole team to be empowered and accountable for the decisions made according to their roles. Now, the issue here is the product owner is the one defining the sprint backlog items. Okay. And the items actually cannot be delivered during the 2 week sprints. Now, how to resolve this? Checking the OPAs to find how we solved the previous similar situation. Uh, no, because we're just transitioning from predictive to agile, so it's the first time working with agile. Okay. Um, Request that the team use the next sprint to complete all technical depth. No, the problem is not about the technical depth. Actually, it's about something else. Extend the sprint to 3 weeks. We don't do that. We don't prolong the sprint. Okay. The right thing to do is actually encourage the team to be empowered, okay, and accountable for the decisions, which means help the team take responsibility of preparing their sprint backlogs. Because the issue here is with the items going into the sprint backlog, the product owner is not supposed to define the work in the sprint backlog, telling the team what are the requirements to be delivered, defining the goal for the sprint. These two are okay to be done by the PO, but defining the work in the sprint backlog instead of the team, that's definitely wrong. That should not be done by the PO. That should be done by the team. And here the problem is the team is not empowered and is not accountable for their decisions. Okay, since they are a cross-functional team. Now, let me use this question to explain something quite important, guys. Now, PMI and their questions, they're using different ways of describing the different techniques we have learned in the training. Now, instead of mentioning the terms such as cross-functional team, deciding the sprint backlog content. Now, PMI actually is using different types of answers now. Okay, maybe in our training when we try to share with you trying to explain to you the different uh, processes and tools. We've used sometimes inside the chapters some straightforward questions and answers, such as, oh, the PO is not supposed to define the sprint backlog items. The team is responsible for defining the sprint backlog items. That we used it in the training inside the chapter, because in the training we have three types of uh, practice tests. The questions inside the chapter, each chapter, to help you understand better the processes and the techniques and tools. Then the questions at the end of the chapter to test your knowledge. And then the quiz, which we send you after we have finished the session, in order so you can evaluate yourself. So, PMI actually, in some of the questions, they're moving to the next level of questions, and they're, giving you an answer that actually describes what needs to be, but without using those basic terms or those terms as we have seen in those basic questions inside the chapter. Okay, so please remember this. So this is quite an advanced question which you need to pay attention to. A project manager is working on a project that will transform the organization's operating model. The project manager reviewed the budget allocation for various phases and was informed that upper management will not approve any additional funds. Knowing that there are no additional funds available, how should the project manager proceed? Allocate the budget, the phases of the project, and meet with upper management to consolidate the final funds. Ensure that the budget is enough to cover the internal resources, since external supplies can be covered by procurement. Allocate the budget to the deliveries that have higher business value for the organization than those with lower business value. Decide to work on the small deliveries, leaving the big deliveries until the end of the project, and track critical expenses. Well, here the project is quite important to the organization. The budget is quite tight. Okay, no additional funds will be approved. Now, remember what I told you the training, and it was mentioned in one of the pages when we studied. It was in the chapter 4, the agile chapter. We said if we have a tight budget, okay, then we need to prioritize the deliveries, focus on those ones that come first, in terms of urgency or value, deliver them, and then move on to the next ones, and then to the next ones until running out of budget. Okay, you probably remember this, and that's why the right answer is answer C. So we need to make sure there is enough budget to the deliveries that have higher business value. Okay, finish them first, and then continue working on the rest of the items until running out of budget. And we have even put this in one of our tips and tricks. So please go back to our tips and tricks, review them, because it's very important to understand this mindset. Allocating budget to the phases of the project and meet with the upper management to consolidate the final funds. Nope. That's not the best approach to to solve this, because actually the stakeholders or the upper management, they told you that they will not approve any additional budget. That does not solve the situation, the answer A. Answer B, ensuring the budget is enough to cover internal resources. No, actually, it's not about the resources or procurement. It's about the work within the phases. Okay, and answer D, starting with the small deliveries. No, we need to prioritize the value. Okay, I mean prioritize based on value. A project manager is working on a cost reimbursable contract from the client side. During project execution, the project manager notices a major deliverable is missing. The project manager raises this with the seller, but the seller advises the project manager that the subject deliverable is not part of the contract. The project manager remembers negotiating and agreeing to this deliverable during the tender process, but cannot find it in the contract. What should the project manager do? Request a change in the contract in order to add the deliverable, add this deliverable to the requirements traceability matrix, terminate the contract and commence the closeout process, or look to see if the deliverable is described in the statement of work SOW. Now, we have a contract here with the seller, but we notice that a major deliverable is missing. So that project manager tells this to the seller, but the seller says, no, this is not part of the contract. However, the project manager remembers seeing this somewhere. Now, if it's not in the contract, but the project manager remembers seeing it somewhere, so answers A and B are out, because we cannot immediately request a change to add it to to the contract, or add it to the requirements traceability matrix, um, because adding this to the requirements traceability matrix doesn't help, because now the issue is with what has been agreed with the seller. So B is out. A, we don't raise immediately the change request. We need to verify first. Terminating the contract. Definitely not. And let me tell you something important in PMI's mindset. Terminating a contract with a seller or a contractor or a vendor is not really encouraged, only in extreme cases when they really don't deliver the agreed performance, even though we have tried to remind them and tried to find a solution with them. So the last resort will be to terminate the contract. So we don't go with terminating the contract as the first solution. Now, here, we need then what the project manager can do is really try, since they remember seeing this somewhere, then maybe it's in the statement of work, because the statement of work actually which was prepared and approved by both um, the seller and us, it definitely includes which work will be done, how it will be done, because that's what in the statement of work, etc. So maybe the project manager can find it in there. Okay, we will take a break in a few minutes. A customer calls the project manager to express concern about a project team member who has been making changes within the live environment without approval. The team member mentioned that the customer called and asked them to make the changes. What should the project manager do next? Next course of action. Now, when the question asks you next, that means maybe a couple of answers could be applicable, but you need to pick the one that comes first in time, most probably, or maybe that is most complete. Reinforce the value of documenting and approving all change requests and ask the customer to issue these through the agreed channels. Organize a meeting to mediate the relationship between the customer and the team member to ensure no feelings are hurt. Ask the customer to email or request directly to you, and you will ensure they're actioned by the correct team member. Or explain to the customer that the team member was just trying to help and the changes can be reverted if necessary. Now, definitely, answer B is to be taken out. Okay. It's not about feelings being hurt. Also, I think answer D can be taken out because it's not about, it's not an effective actually, just explaining how the team member was just trying to help. No, it's not about this. We have an agreement, we have a process to follow. So actually, the right way is to make sure that documenting and approving all change requests are being done in the correct way and according to the process, and ask the customer to issue any change request through the agreed channels. Okay. Um, yeah. So, since it was the customer who actually asked to make these changes, okay, uh, and then they express their concern, then it's a good practice to tell the customer, please issue any change request following the agreed channels, whatever agreed channel is. It's not necessarily an email. Maybe the agreed channel is a tool. Actually, okay, maybe they need to use a template to fill out a template and submit it through a certain tool, for example, or a particular tool. So that's the best answer because actually it's about reinforcing the application of the process, okay, and using the agreed channels. So here it mentions the agreed channels, even though we don't know what are these agreed channels, but is the best answer actually, okay. Answer B is out, answer D is out. We explained them, and it's not about just using emails. Maybe the agreed channel is something different. Okay. Uh, Question 41 from exam 20. A project manager and a project team developing a new product are discussing which work methods and tools to use to build the deliverable. What should the result of this discussion be? An agreed upon work method and tools that should fit the business need and project constraints, a detailed mitigation plan on the risks for each work method and the tools used, a consensus that everything will run as anticipated once the tools and work methods are identified, or a technology roadmap for creating similar deliverables in the future with the same tools. I think answer D are out and answer B are out because actually the team and the project manager developing a new product, discussing which work methods and tools to use to build the deliverable. So definitely answer B and D out. Okay, we don't need a detailed mitigation plan for the risks. And again, you will see that in a lot of questions there are these answers about the risks. And as I mentioned earlier, don't pick them unless the question is really about risks or you can understand that there is a risk out of the situation. If not, then please don't pick it. Okay. And we don't need a technology roadmap for, because this is way in the future. We don't need that. We need to know what's the outcome of this discussion. Okay. A consensus that everything will run as anticipated once the tools are identified is not the best answer. The best one is we need to, the output of this discussion should be the agreed upon work methods and tools that will fit the business need of the project and the project constraints. That's the best output of this discussion, okay? Not just a consensus like, yeah, everything will run fine and that's it, okay? Let's just check the number of this question in the slides. Just a second, guys. Uh, yeah, okay. Let's have three more questions and then we can take a break, okay? A project manager is working with the team members and customers who are operating in multiple countries. The team is working on implementing a new technology that includes ambiguities, uncertainties, and unknowns, both in terms of technology and of the end user expectations for this solution. What should the project manager do to keep the stakeholders engaged? Use email as a communication channel, use feedback and decision making tools, use meetings as a communication channel, or use a shared collaboration platform. Okay. Team members, customers, different countries. The team working on implementing a new tech. Okay, a lot of ambiguities, uncertainties, and unknowns, both in terms of technology and end user expectations. How should the project manager? What should the project manager do to keep the stakeholders engaged? So the question is about keeping the stakeholders engaged. Is about engaging the stakeholders. Is using emails a right solution to keep stakeholders engaged? Definitely not. So it's definitely not answer A. Okay. So if not answer A, then absolutely the right answer is using a shared collaboration platform. Okay. Um, use feedback and decision making tools. Feedback decision making tools is not to keep stakeholders engaged. Meetings as a communication channel. Meetings are good, actually. We have said in the training that meetings are effective. We use them for different purposes. But here, we're now from this context in here, implementing a new technology, a lot of ambiguities, uncertainties, unknowns, um, uh, user expectation, etc. Then we need to use a shared collaboration platform in which we can collaborate together to clarify, because this shared collaboration platform can be used to clarify ambiguities, uncertainties, unknowns, okay, and make sure that everything about the technology and the expectations are really handled really well, okay? So this will be through a collaboration platform because it will collaborate between team members and the customers. Remember, okay? We need here to involve both team members and customers, okay? Since they're operating in different countries. So we need to have a platform which can, foster this shared collaboration and clarify any ambiguities, uncertainties, and unknowns, okay? And this shared collaboration platform actually will include direct or will involve direct contact between members and customers. A project manager has been assigned to a project that involves building 100 wells for a small community that is urgently in need of access to water. What should the project manager do next? Hire local contractors who are familiar with the environment, start project planning and develop the project management plan, face the challenge immediately and start sending relief to the town, process a change request for additional funding due to project urgency. Now, definitely answers A and D are out, definitely, because hiring local contractors or additional asking, requesting additional funds, that's definitely not. We said that in PMI's mindset, we don't go for, these easy solutions, either asking for more money, that's out, or you know what, let's have somebody external do the work. No. Uh, Now, the project manager has been assigned and there is urgent need. So what you need to do next? Next is the most logical action is definitely to start the planning for the project. Okay, facing the challenge and start sending relief. That's not what you need to do next. Okay, it's good to send relief to the town because they are in need of the water, but you need to be practical. So just start planning and developing the plan. Okay, that's the best course of action. All right. Two more questions and we can then take a break. One phase of a project took much longer than initially anticipated. The key stakeholders expressed their concern regarding a potential project delay. What should the project manager do? Expedite the next phase to reduce slippage, add more float to the overall project schedule, request additional contingency from the sponsor, organize a root cause analysis workshop. Now we have a delay. We definitely cannot add more float because float actually it increases the schedule. And then requesting additional contingency money from the sponsor, definitely not. Okay, we need to understand why this delay happened. So the right answer is D. Organize a root cause analysis workshop. As easy as that, And based on the findings, we'll understand the root cause of the issue, why it happened. We can, have a workaround and also eliminate this cause for, going forward, actually. Okay. The last question before the break. A project manager is appointed to manage an infrastructure project that spans across several countries, including different time zones within a sub-region. It is likely that most of the project team members will never meet, but they will have to collaborate to ensure deliverables are met. What should the project manager do to ensure good collaboration between the remote team members? Discuss the concerns with the project sponsor and modify the project charter to include more budget for iterations. I think you already know this is a wrong answer. I think you know it because we're asking the sponsor for more money and we're modifying the charter to include more. But I think you know it, so you don't even need to think about it. Once you read it, it's wrong. Save yourself time in the exam. Save yourself time and just forget about this answer. It's wrong. Okay. Plan a communication method and allow the project team members to virtually interact. Create create a social media group platform for the team to create a supportive environment, or set the ground rules and identify a contingency plan and the risk register. As usual, answer these out. Again, you know, we have, remote teams, we need them to collaborate. What we need to do is plan a communication method and allow the team members to virtually interact. Answer A is out. Answer D, again, is out of the topic. So again, risk register, risk, etc. Creating a social media group platform for the team to create a supportive environment, definitely not. So the right answer here to resolve this communication issue is planning communication method and let the team virtually interact. Okay. All right. So let's take a break. I suggest to take a break for 15 minutes. Let me tell you what will happen after the break. Okay. Now, after the break, actually, we will continue with the questions, and then we will have an open discussion with you. And before the open discussion, I will be sharing with you the last tips before taking your PMP exam. So stay tuned. Meet you in 15 minutes.